Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I am joined by our resident recruiting guru at Locked On, Brian Smith. And before we get started, I do want to say LinkedIn is the college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On Podcast Network. LinkedIn helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So Brian Smith is on here. We're going to talk about running backs today. But before we get started, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. It's the middle of spring ball. There's plenty of stuff to read up on. Transfer portal coming up in a month. I'm sure some of the guys I'm seeing at practices not playing as much will be in that very soon. So there's all kinds of stuff for me to get into beyond recruiting even. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we got a situation where they announced the schedule as we're recording this. They announced it today, and Ole Miss is not playing Auburn again in 2025, which means that is 2 years of me not being able to poke the bear.
Well, you know what? You can do it from afar. It's just more fun if they're playing each other.
Yeah, it is. And it probably hurts them if they haven't beaten Ole Miss in a couple of tries, and then they have to just continue to wait. But, hey, it's a crazy thing. And the real thing I'm upset about is not being able to do a crossover with Zach because I enjoy doing those shows.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So I guess we can get together and do a college baseball crossover that nobody will watch. So
yeah, nobody would.
Yeah. So, let's talk about running backs in this recruiting cycle, the 2025 cycle. We talked last week about how with the advent of multi-year transfers, high school recruiting becomes less and less and less important, but there still are some good players and you'd rather have them than not, I guess that's what I'd say. And I guess we'll start with Akylin Dear. What's the latest you have heard on Akylin?
A&M is possibly the team to watch, which is kind of goofy to me for a Mississippi kid, but they have gotten some kids from the state in the last few years. I find that odd. I'll still have to see it and, to believe it. But Ole Miss is probably the team trending. He's got offers from everybody, though. I want to see going into June, like where he's at with the OBs, because I'm sure there'll be some cancels and things moved around. Who will fill out his 5 visits? Right now, I wouldn't wager anything on that other than kind of like usual suspects like Tennessee or Alabama or somebody like that will get one, maybe Georgia. But I'm curious to see if he takes any like to Oregon or if he takes one to Ohio State or something random. I'm really curious.
Yeah, and because Akylin Dear is such a good running back prospect, Ole Miss fans might not have heard other running backs that Ole Miss is recruiting because Ole Miss is that all in on Akylin Dear. But there are a couple of other running back names that you need to know, and one of which name is a running back called Bo Jackson. And I tell you what, Brian, if your name is Bo Jackson and you play running back, you better be a dude.
He's from one of the private schools in Cleveland, and he's a big guy, 6'1", 200 plus, and he can run. Like he's an Ohio State, Michigan level recruit from the Big Ten area that's got a bunch of SEC offers. Ole Miss and Tennessee and all these different schools are after him, and it's because he runs over guys. He runs around them. He shakes them. He'll probably be a starter in the SEC or Big Ten by the end of his sophomore year, be my guess. So isn't it ironic, though? When I first saw that, I thought, okay, that's probably a nickname or because Jackson's a common last name, but like, what is Bo? I'm like, oh, my God. I kind of feel sorry for him in a way. There's no possible way you can live up to that.
Well, something like that. He was named for Bo Jackson, right?
Got to be, right?
That's the way that worked. That had to be named for Bo Jackson.
But could you project that he was going to be able to carry the football? Like the odds of this are just weird. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what they are. They got to be it's just weird.
Maybe the dad, and I say the dad because the mom didn't do this. The dad just is supremely confident that whoever his kid is, even though he's not playing college and professional ball, that his kid would obviously get the traits necessary to do it at a high level.
I don't know if that's fortuitous or just ridiculous luck, but I'm probably going with the latter.
Yeah.
At any rate, if Ole Miss got him, they would be happy. This is, from a stylistic standpoint, a traditional downhill tailback who can also catch and make some guys miss. You can never have enough of those, Stephen.
Yeah. I looked at his video, and he was fairly explosive. Like I said, I don't know much about the competition because up north, you could have really good schools playing on a really small, crappy field. So you can't really judge just by looking at it. But I was impressed watching it, honestly.
Yeah, he plays at a program that actually matters up there. And, maybe he's a guy that wants to stick around in the end, but he's taking visits to like Tennessee and stuff. I forget where all he's going. I've got it up on one of my tabs, but like he's one of those rare guys that might come down south, which would be kind of cool because it doesn't happen a lot. Cleveland kids tend to stay in the Big Ten region.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Any other running backs that Ole Miss fans need to watch out for?
Still a chance that Alvin Henderson could take an OB. I spoke with him this past Saturday. He's the elusive all-around back out of Elba, Alabama. For the record, even though it's 1A ball, I'm still going to say it. He had 61 touchdowns last year, Stephen. At the end of the day, that's really good. So I don't care what level you play at. Like a third of his carries went into the end zone or something like that. It was something absurd. And you know what? He's got another year to do it. Him at the 1A level is hilarious because he's built like a boxer. He is chiseled, 5'10", 197. That kid's probably at 7% body fat. He is yoked.
Yeah, it's kind of like go back to Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl. He's doing that type of stuff at the high school level.
Yeah, Bo Jackson Tecmo Bowl is my all-time favorite video character. It's not even close.
Yeah, it's superhuman. Before we get out of here, Caden Proctor is going back to Alabama after taking his NIL money to go to Iowa. There are rumors that Caleb Downs is going to go back to Alabama. And whether or not they do it or not, they can do it. That's fine. I understand that altogether. Does Iowa have any recourse whatsoever?
Well, not according to that court ruling in the state of Kentucky a month or two ago about you can just keep transferring. I don't know how that works. And at this point, the NCAA is just a complete worthless entity. So who's stopping him from doing it? Now, here's the other side, and I'm not suggesting this will actually transpire, but if there's a lawyer available, there's a chance at a lawsuit. And since you took $100K and you didn't play for the Hawkeyes, I don't know how the contract is structured, but if he really took all $100,000, and I don't know if he did, I'm just whatever, but assuming he did, do you want to play that game? Because it's probably not going to end well for you long-term as a program because other teams are going to use that against you in recruiting. But, I mean, technically they could probably sue the kid. Yeah, somebody's going to do that eventually for something. It's going to happen.
Somebody has to do it. There's too much money that's flying around for something like that not to happen.
Who's it going to be, Stephen?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see Lane Kiffin doing it just because he's Lane Kiffin, just throwing that out there. If somebody ever did that to Lane, like stayed for a month and a half, especially if he like went to Bama or LSU, oh boy, that would be interesting.
Yeah. And I don't know. And you being down in that Tallahassee area, I should say, you moved up. What is the thoughts on the ground down there about Clemson suing the ACC and joining that lawsuit? Not joining the lawsuit, but
it's their own separate. It's another one.
Yeah, just adding to it.
Well, number one, the ACC better have a lot of lawyer money because that ain't going to be the last one. So I don't know.
Feels like that's the plan, right?
Well, they want to just drag them through the mud to make it just like we're just going to keep having injunctions and this and that you have to pay and just tick them off. But like the ACC is going to fold if they leave, so they're probably screwed either way. I think they'll just go down guns blazing. Just my opinion. But North Carolina and or Miami and or NC State, any of them could leave. This could get really ugly for the Atlantic Coast Conference and in a hurry.
Yeah, what I would like to see happen, and I've talked about this on one of my other shows, is I think the SEC needs to get Clemson and FSU just because they need to get those and they fit the footprint and It needs to
100%.
happen. It just does. But the other schools in the ACC, because if that happens, the conference is over with. I mean, there's a chance that the ACC is going to fold before SMU ever gets a dime from that conference.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But I would like to see a school from North Carolina, a school from Virginia, just to get in there, whether Virginia or Virginia Tech, that's irrelevant to me. North Carolina State, that's irrelevant to me. Just one of those two, just so you have it for the footprint. I would like Clemson, Florida State, and I want Georgia Tech, and I want Tulane.
LSU would do everything in their power not to allow Tulane in, I'm sure. But
this is why I want them. I want as many schools as possible to have two SEC schools in their own state. Because Ole Miss and Mississippi State has to go through it. Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee,
that's
and
why
Vanderbilt.
LSU is going to try to fight like hell. I mean, I know you understand that. But.
Yeah, Texas A&M tried to fight too, but the SEC brought in Texas. Now,
Texas is a different animal, though.
Yeah, Tulane is not Texas. I understand that. But in my head, if I'm thinking as an Ole Miss fan, that is my logical thought process. Anything to dilute the talent in those states makes Mississippi's talent go up.
Well, I mean, it would. Louisiana State is arguably as good a job as there is if you have the right staff there, because that state is top 5 in the nation many years for NFL talent. They got one school.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very hard.
Yeah.
It's just not.
LSU and Arkansas, it's really similar. The difference is there's more players in Louisiana than Arkansas, but players inside that state, if the home school wants them, they're getting them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's very few exceptions. There 1 or 2 kids a year, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a bit of a monopoly for the Bayou Bengals.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Brian Smith, the Florida football scout, Locked On's recruiting analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for stopping by. Let's do it again next week.
Thank you very much. Take care, Stephen.